Star Wars: Skeleton Crew. First episode released December 2nd, 2024. Last episode released January 14th, 2025. Released on Disney+. Created by Christopher Ford and John Watts. Starring Jude Law, Ryan Kiera Armstrong, Kiriana Crater, Robert Timothy Smith, and Ravi Kabot-Conyers. Rotten Tomatoes, 91%. Metacritic, 72. IMDb, 7.1. Welcome back to Real Reviews. Like always, I am your host, Lee. Today we are finally discussing Star Wars: Skeleton Crew. I covered the first 2 episodes with initial impressions. My original thoughts were fairly positive. But what did I think about the rest of the show? Let's talk about it. I am not above enjoying something with a younger audience as its target demographic, and this show is no different. While the story is around the same level as something like The Goonies, which I initially compared it to, it doesn't have a story that I would say is overly simple or that panders aggressively by making it actually childish. The story does treat everything with the gravity that the children characters would. Every story beat and each interaction with another character is treated properly within their perspective. For some characters like Vim and Neil, this is overly trusting and ignoring the negatives, while characters like Fern have less tolerant for the dishonesty of the galaxy. This can make some scenes feel jarring since the characters aren't always in sync, and much of what they do can feel immature. The characters, while a bit cookie-cutter, are enjoyable to watch, and that is because the acting isn't even remotely bad. So Jude Law is awesome as the scoundrel fake Jedi Jadna Naywood. While we know what his deal is, basically as soon as we see him, it is easy to see how he is believable to children. He is able to play each deception and note just perfectly. Out of the kids, I personally feel like Kiriana Crater and Ryan Kiera Armstrong are going to come out of this the best. Their roles as KB and Fern, the young female duo of the bunch. They handled a lot of the more serious aspects of the children. So a lot of the heavy lifting is done by them, and they kill it. I think Robert Timothy Smith will get accolades for being the only of the core cast that had to wear large prosthetics during much of his time on set. I don't think that Ravi Kabot-Conyers brings much to the table as Vim, but that isn't his fault. He was given the overly hopeful, trusting head in the Clouds Dreamer. He does it well, but he is the least interesting character of the bunch. As far as antagonist and protagonist go, I think everything falls right into place. In shows targeted at a younger audience, often the role of protagonist is spread among a group as to include and interest more children and get them engaged with the media. Jadna Naywood is a spectacular antagonist, and I think the choice to have him with the kids almost from the start was a great idea. On the note of Neil, I freaking love the number of aliens they have in this show. Plenty of actors and practical makeup and prosthetics, and this made the world feel so much more rich with lore than just staring at a bunch of boring humans or the super simple aliens. Aliens and droids will always be my favorite part of Star Wars. Also, SM-33 or SME is a fantastic droid. Obviously at least partially designed after the Peter Pan character, this loyal character who follows rules to the T but also knows which captain he prefers. This show also has a good mix of new and old ships, some of which I certainly hope to grab LEGO versions of if and when they come out. Ships like aliens are one of the pivotal things that makes Star Wars what it is. The Onyx Cinder is a fantastic addition to the lineup, looking like a junker to start only to come away looking polished like the Republic-era ship it was always meant to be. So one of my larger complaints with recent shows for Star Wars is that everything always tied back to the Skywalker saga, and I didn't like it. I keep wanting things to expand the galaxy, and this show does it. Even though we get the New Republic, and out of 10 mentions the Republic and the Jedi, we don't get mention of much other than things like the last message from the Republic being that all Jedi are traitors. So this really helps build out the universe. We mention of several lost planets, out of 10, which is a truly lost planet. I think one of the best things that they did with this show is show us that the treasure planet was real, even if we don't get to know if the treasure is or not. Most stories about lost treasure are about if the destination is even real, but in this case we know that it is. This also really helps with the journey from the audience's end. Much like the children, we don't know all of the truths about the planet. Also, having the galaxy full of legends about Eta 10 helps really solidify how it will expand the galaxy. One thing that is done very well is that the pacing is very solid. That is largely due to the fact that we basically get one episode per planet. The characters never stop their mission to reach their goal. And with the range of characters and the bad guy being with them the whole time, when one character would get distracted from the goal, another is there to pick it up. Some of the newer shows have had issues like episodes that feel wildly out of place, which have pretty consistently drawn ire from the fanbase, so I am glad that this show doesn't have that issue. Even when they go back to the parents on at a tin, they are just making sure we know what is happening. But those don't take up the full episode, they're just there so when they get to the end we aren't surprised. The one area that I will give this show some negative marks on is the effects. The practical applications are nearly perfect, but when they use visual effects they often look really bad. If we didn't know from The Mandalorian that they have something like the volume stage, I wouldn't get nearly as irritated by this, but it does exist, and we know that a seemingly real-looking background can exist, and the characters can move through it in ways that are natural, and they don't have the odd blending issues. They clearly didn't use that here, or they weren't able to spend as much time as was needed to make it look good. So obviously I like this show, and my score does reflect that. I gave it a 7 out of 8 or 8.75 stars. I have already seen that this show isn't getting a season 2, and that is likely for the best because I have no idea where they would go with it from here. I hope that the characters do end up in other works, but we shall see. The only point lost was on the effects, which I just covered, so I won't backtrack on that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment for more content like this. I tend to have at least 2 videos out per week, real reviews like this or AI reviews depending on releases. Until next time,